So, after less than 2 years as a first-time lawmaker in the House of Representatives, Barrister Ikenga Ugochinyere appears to have really mastered the ropes. He's literally hit the ground running and is clearly one of the more active legislators, introducing a whole slew of bills and motions that rank him in the top tier of lawmakers in the House. One of his most notable bills is seeking to amend the 1999 Constitution to allow presidential, governorship, National Assembly, State Assembly and local government elections to be held on the same day. It has just passed its second reading. Other notable bills that have passed second reading include one for state resource control and another to accelerate the development of roads across Nigeria. Today, he's seen as an important figure in the PDP's next political generation, though he's often defied the party line and is not afraid to point out lapses in the way it functions. He sees it as righteous resistance to overcome persistent injustice. Well, for more on all this, I'm joined now in the studio by the constitutional lawyer and member of the House of Representatives from Imo State, Honorable Ikenga Ugochinyere. How nice to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
I was just cracking a joke with you earlier that I saw the top half of your head, which is a very rare thing because it disappears under a red cap. So it's a privilege to have you here. Give us more details of these bills that you've proposed that have scaled second reading as briefly as you can. The number of them alone sounds impressive and it suggests a lot of hard work.
Yeah, it's not just me. You know, most of them have 30-something, 40-something members co-sponsoring with me. But the beautiful thing is that the leadership of the House set the tune for what is happening since Wednesday to Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. On Tuesday, we have 40 bills crossing second reading, mainly judicial, political, economic reforms. Then we'll have 44 on Wednesday crossing second reading. And today, being Thursday, we had 49 crossing second reading.
That's extraordinary.
Each of them, yes, have far-reaching implications on our democracy, constitutional governance, quest for economic development, and so on and so forth. So because they said the time I said it's part of our legislative agenda, the Speaker, Tajuddin Abbas and Benjamin Kanu said, this whole week is going to be about constitutional amendments so that we can move everything to the Constitutional Amendment Committee so that they can fine-tune it and bring it back for the final stage. And that is the opportunity that gave us room to bring up this consideration. Some of them have been there for 1 year or thereabout. But the key one, like you said, is the one to amend the Constitution to make provision for simultaneous conduct of election into the office of the President, Vice President, Governor, Senate, Rep, State Assembly, and so on and so forth, all in one day. And the reason is very simple. We have tried different forms and systems, and our election credibility has not that over-improved. And we strongly believe that, one, we can reduce cost of doing election because we normally have President, Senate, and Rep the same day. We're just adding to the governorship and State Assembly. So the same ad hoc staff, the same electoral material, just the ballot paper is what is going to change and the result sheet. And again, one of the problems we are facing is voter apathy caused by people losing confidence in the electoral process over the years. So if you have all election in one day, supporters of the State Assembly candidate, supporters of the Senator, supporters of the Rep candidate, supporters of the President and supporters of the governors are going to troop out to vote. In that case, you're going to first have large turnout of voters. In terms of election security, agent issues. When you now have agents for State Assembly, for different parties, agent for Rep, Senate, Presidency, agency alone will give you almost about 20 people at the polling unit. So we may be having a situation whereby the usual voter apathy and lack of agents at the polling unit that allow some political talks to start running up and down will be a thing of the past because you're going to have hundreds of people turning out in the polling unit. But the beautiful aspect of it is that there's one aspect of our election that has faced challenges, which is credibility of accreditation. You see strange and what I call criminal situation where somebody that ran for governorship will have 100,000 as accredited voters and somebody that ran for Senate will now have maybe something like 200,000 accredited voters. So what does that tell you? It means that people keep changing the election figures. They keep changing the accreditation. But if you have all election in one day, you now have a situation whereby once the State Assembly results is announced, because the State Assembly candidate will do everything possible to get his result. Once the result is announced and says State Assembly for this LUGA is 10,000, that means that the result for the presidency, for the Senate and governorship of that LUGA cannot exceed 10,000. So you now have those kind of situation in Kogi where somebody will win 100,000 for House of Rep and somebody running for Senate from the same LUGA will now be scoring 200,000. That means that when they are losing, they now look for a particular weak LUGA and increase the number. So this will help us to clean the accreditation process and put a peg. And for litigation purposes, if you have announced the result for State Assembly and given the person the result sheet, the person that ran for Rep cannot have 10,000 from a polling unit that the Rep candidate had 5,000 as accreditation. So that will expose, the fraudulent practices of, indiscriminate change of accreditation process. And also, which is very important, that bill also has provisions, part of it which went first, second reading and has gone on the issue of mandatory transmission of election results, and also using the electronic transmission system as the basis for determining dispute. So you cannot have a situation whereby Beaver's machine is showing 5,000 accredited voters. Somebody is parading a result that is also showing 20,000. This kind of situation will not happen because the result from the Beavers will not be used for determining that dispute. And more importantly, the issue of assessing the certified true copy for litigation, that INEC will continue to delay the legal department, you go back and forth. There is mandatory provision that within 14 days, that information must be made available. And the person that is providing it, failure to do so, will have imprisonment attached to it.
Well, the interesting thing about all this, I mean, it sounds really impressive listening to you talk about it, but people are reminded of the 2023 election. Arguably, you can say we've moved on, but there was a lot of promises about the infallibility of beavers and all the rest of it, and how you can't really jimmy the system. And of course, the system ended up, from the point of view of a lot of people, being jimmied. So you have to wonder whether what the question here is between the law that you guys make and the practicality of the reality on the ground. I wonder how much, for example, from the INEC's point of view, logistical challenges and so on, how much is this likely to be a challenge holding elections, all these elections on the same day? And did you guys consult INEC before you sort of put your bill together?
Well, all these things are proposals which has gone past second reading, and then they will go to committee stage of the public hearing, during which stakeholders like INEC are going to make input to say why it should be or not, and other stakeholders. So, but the most important thing is that we are trying to find what will work best for our dear country. And the political players, the INEC, the judiciary are all complicit one way or the other in what have made our electoral process not to be that perfect as we desire. That's why, if you watch, there's also a provision in the bills that some of my colleagues also sponsored that went through second reading, putting a timeline for decisions on election dispute before swearing in the respective winners into office. You have timelines that has to do with the relevant publications and timelines of what INEC is supposed to do. And also there's provision now that is giving powers to the Federal High Court to get involved in electoral offenses, so that people who have fallen short of the law are going to be dealt with. There's also proposal from people that has to do with about how do we make INEC more, neutral in terms of should we go back to the situation we used to have before, where INEC staffs are the returning officers, INEC staff are the collection officers. Instead of, in trying to cure the lapses of that era, we brought in lecturers that have shown to be, with all due respect to them, worse than the situation we used to have with INEC. We are lecturers who are professors who announce results that does not tally with accreditations, who even announce results even when the election is still going on. Should we not go back so that INEC staff who are, government staff that can be held accountable should administer this collection process and returning process, instead of giving it to lecturers who most of them feel it doesn't concern them. They'll just come and announce whatever they like and then run away from the polling unit. All these things are aimed at finding what is best for the country, and it's not like cast on stone. It's something that is subject to amendment as we go forward.
But ultimately, it is about electoral reform, which this country really needs.
It's not just only electoral reform that we are pushing right now. We are pushing economic reforms, we are pushing electoral
reforms. Yes,
I'm
going to get to that in a
division
minute.
of powers and so on and so forth.
But
the key one, Nigeria, Nigeria is a political, interesting country whereby politics comes first before every other discussion. So people are more interested in these electoral reforms. And I must be honest with you that Nigerians are expecting a lot to come out from us as it has to do with electoral reform. They want mandatory transmission of election results. They want also a situation whereby there will be stiff punishment for anybody that announces a figure that does not tally with the actual vote. They want a situation whereby those who get involved in those offenses are punished, tried without anybody escaping it. And they want a situation whereby their vote will count. And that is why we're saying, okay, how do we make the accreditation process transparent? Apart from other safeguards we are putting, let everybody come out on the same day. Like I talk about the logistic issue. It's the same issue. What you are carrying extra is 2 ballot paper for the governorship and the state assembly, just to manage. Most countries, Indonesia, that have bigger populations and bigger elections, do these elections in one day. And as we advance further with technology, these things can be handled. If these materials, like last distributions, have been very effective, you will agree with me. Just that politicians have a way of messing it up along the line. But these materials, non-sensitive ones, are as pulling in it a day before election. So if they can get there, then I don't see any reason why we should not be able to deploy them to be pulling in it here.
So this is past second reading.
Yes.
I mean, you talked a little bit about the fact that it's still a protracted process.
Yes.
And I wonder if you're concerned about, because there must be people who are not supportive of this. I mean, getting it past that axis of resistance, if you like, and turning it into law.
Of course, like I told you, it's politics. When people sit and they say, okay, this proposal, is it going to help us or our candidate to win or lose? And when they feel that it cannot help their candidate to win, or then they start opposing it. But like I said before, most Nigerians want that which is best for everybody now. And most lawmakers agree, especially lawmakers of the 10th Assembly, that Nigerians want this electoral reform and that we should give them something that is different, something that is, stronger, something that can preserve the integrity of the electoral process. And we're talking to our colleagues and talking to stakeholders. In the days ahead, we'll continue that advocacy for them to see reason why we should take this approach, among other numerous suggestions that is already coming. Like I told you, from Wednesday to Thursday to Tuesday, it was our 133 constitutional amendment bills that get second reading. That shows that lawmakers are disastrous of seeing that things change for the better.
And I noticed that a lot of your bills are reformative in nature. I mean, the ones that you sponsor particularly, and they appear to have a direct bearing on using politics as well as the economy to unite Nigerians. I mean, 2 of those bills, for instance, come to mind. The one seeking to amend the Constitution to limit the period that any individual can serve as president of Nigeria from 2 terms of 4 years each to a single 6-year term. Another seeking an amendment for the rotation of the presidency across the 6 geopolitical zones. They were rejected when they were presented for second reading, though I understand you intend to represent them.
We have started representing them. You can see that the single-day election has already scaled through, because we're doing a lot of work talking to our colleagues to see reason why this is the best approach. And also today, devolution of power also scared second reading. And that is very important because people have been agitating on issues of resource control. So it's high time we get to the table to talk about how to move some of these resource issues from the exclusive list to the concurrent list, so that states can be involved. And that will help in economic development. Issues of mine, oil field, gas, water resources, and so on and so forth. We'll go all over the world. We see what they do in North Dakota with the oil and the taxes they pay to the centers. We see all sorts of things that have helped in bringing, accelerated development. And then we'll come here because people want to be addicted to the old way of doing things. They don't want to change. And different people, even the speaker has a bill on devolution of power.
Yes, I mean, I noticed that one of your bills is dealing with a form of economic restructuring. There's a lot of arguments about restructuring.
Yeah, it's very contentious issue.
The process.
It's a very contentious issue. But the political reforms over the years have all dwelt on it. It always brings crisis or perceived crisis between the North and the South. But the world is changing. The world is dynamic. It's high time we get to the table to talk about these issues of resource control so that it can help in accelerated development. And good thing that they allowed it to pass the second rating, get into the critical stage, which is the third, where everybody will now sit on a round table to look at the content of these resource control issues. And also, like when you see a state governor being unable to construct basic road infrastructure that can help increasing growth and economic activity just because they say it's a federal road. We now said all over the world we don't have that kind of situation. Federal focuses on those trunk A road that interstate from maybe Gombe to Abia and other, but intra-state roads that is going to benefit the people from that state. Why do we need to wait for the federal government? So that's why we're trying to change that law to now say, okay, any road that other than trunk A should be moved to the concurrent list so that states can be able to do it for the benefit of their people. So what we now need to do is that that is why in the devolution of power, we're also seeking to see how do we reduce the amount of money that goes to the federal government so that some of these monies can go to the state and local government where the redevelopment is happening. So they can have more money to do these state roads. That's why we're pushing those kind of economic
It's very interesting listening to you talk, because I mean, I remember you a year and a half ago sitting here as you were battling your way into the House of Representatives. I mean, you're still a relative newcomer to the House, perhaps not quite a greenhorn, given that you were already a lawyer before you entered the National Assembly, but certainly nowhere near being a veteran. I mean, how did you get up there with all these bills and all these kind of almost revolutionary, you know, laws that you're trying to push through?
I think, first of all, maybe my background as an advocate for good governance and constitutional reform over the years, and also as a lawyer gave me some background. And then coming into the House, the 10th House of Reps set a legislative agenda that focuses on constitutional reforms, and that every member should take that opportunity to be able to make suggestions on key reforms that can help to move the country forward. And that's not just me. Like today, you saw some of my colleagues that they abuse for state police and local government police also scared second reading. You have the one on Supreme Court reforms that can expand the membership of the Supreme Court. Instead of the number we have now, 16 or 18 or thereabout, that make cases to stay there over the years, you can expand the membership so that we can have more judges at the Supreme Court level to be able to administer justice. You saw the one by the Deputy Speaker Benjamin Carlo that focuses on putting for the first time timeline for criminal and civil cases. You now see people who are facing corruption cases, murder cases, being in prison for 20 years, 30 years. It's so ridiculous. Nowhere in the world. Now, the bill that went second reading today by the Benjamin Okezekali is now saying, let's put a timeline within which the first trial court and the appellate court can finish your criminal. And then when people know that, at times people commit crime in Nigeria, saying that after all you take adjournment and you stay 20, 30 years, you may even die before the trial ends. But when they know that it takes 300 days to start from beginning to finish it, then you have to be very careful because you're going to definitely go to jail. And also the giving appeal court the jurisdiction to end issues of governorship, election dispute and status, so that we don't disturb Supreme Court with those particular issues, just to help in making the justice system more efficient and so on and so forth. And also discipline judges, which is important. Most
that's
judges,
very important.
Have not been able to have the kind of independence they need because of interference by the executive. So they are trying to move that power by suggestions that move second reading today to NJC, so that they can deal with their colleagues in the right way. Yes, instead
Council,
of the executive kind of, to make the judges more independent to be able to carry out their functions.
And of course, you also sponsored the Southeast Development Commission bill.
No, I'm a co-sponsor. I
think
it
you
was
co-sponsored it.
The Deputy Speaker.
Yeah, but that's already been assented to by President Tinubu, and it's already being implemented. I mean, all this has boosted your profile as a lawmaker, hasn't it? I mean, an independent report of the National Assembly rated you amongst the top lawmakers based on the quality of motions and bills that you've sponsored or co-sponsored. And according to the Order paper, which is a parliamentary monitoring organization, one particular motion you sponsored on the arbitrary increase of the price of petrol was rated as being the highest human interest motion. And that was just 1 month after you got into the House. I mean, I don't mean to make your head get a bit bigger than it is, because I want to be sure the red cap stays on. But I mean, that is impressive, let's face it.
Yes, and I think it starts with, first of all, like I always said, the independence of a candidate is very important. I pride myself as an independent candidate that my victory was solely rooted in the support from Ideato people and God that made it possible. So I'm not like, I'm not controlled by any individual except the people of Ideato and my God and my conscience. And that gave me the freedom needed for me to pursue these aggressive constitutional reforms that I believe so much in. So if a candidate emerges through a process that is not transparent or owes allegiance to somebody whose interest is different from that of the people, you will have problem with performance. But I don't have any reason to have problem with performance because I was in exile when the people elected me.
Yes.
So I have no other reason than to do this thing that I'm doing.
But you've had problems with your party, though, haven't you? I mean, just going beyond Parliament.
Yes.
I mean, you've had falling outs with the PDP. And at one point, there was talk of expelling you amid accusations of gross indiscipline, insubordination, anti-party activities. But you survived, didn't you?
I think it's still the same problem I'm talking about, the Nigerian nation, where some people think we should continue to do things the old way. What is the bone of contention? It's a very simple issue. The provision of the party constitution made provision that in the absence of the chairman, the national chairman, or when he's removed, the zone from which the former chairman originated from should act as chairman. So Damagu ought not to be parading as national chairman of PDP. It's a very simple truth, and I don't know how to paint it, that the North Center is supposed to have produced the national chairman. And now he held on to that position for almost 2 years now. Now supported by a national secretary then, Samuel Anyanwu, who ran for a governorship election, and our provision was very clear that you are deemed to have resigned as national secretary. Then he went, finished running election and lost, and came back and said he's national secretary. When the Southeast zone, based on NWC recommendation, have already appointed Udokoye as national secretary. So Anato Anyanwu has no business also parading as secretary. And again, he makes it so obvious that his allegiance is to Nyesom Wike, who is an APC, working in an APC government as a minister. And every PDP member should feel so scared that just like the national secretary of Republican Party telling you that he's loyal to Democratic Party minister, it should scare you that the national secretary of an opposition party proudly tells you that his leader is an APC minister and that nobody can stop him from doing what the man wants. And then that means if the man have said that he's working for the ruling party, in that case, you're also working for the ruling party. So the battle is about decency, that we have people that are elders who doesn't want to be decent in their politics, that allow the North Central to take the position, allow Udokoye to continue to function. We have gone up to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court have heard the supremacy of party on that judgment. That means whatever the party say is final. And in the end of Lisi today, there are about 18. Those who believe that the nonsense that Anyanwu and Damagu is doing should end is about 14. So we enjoy majority at every given time as I speak to you. But they keep obtaining injunctions and orders of court from the same judges at the Federal High Court, strange rulings that keep changing our judicial and political system left, right, and center. They will carry somebody in APC in Rivers and make a state chapter chairman because that's what Wike wants. So I don't belong to that class that can see those things, and because I want to survive in politics, I will not speak at this position. Like I told you, I've already left. I was in exile when they elected me. So if I was a do-or-die, I would have been there killing myself. Yeah. So the people gave me this mandate. So any day they want to take the mandate, I don't have any problem with it. I'll continue my advocacy, which I enjoy.
We're almost out of time. But I mean, listening to you talk about internal party issues, I mean, to the outsider, there seem to be so many puzzling, enigmatic plots in Nigerian politics that merely surviving it seems to be the biggest challenge. That's why people look to you and say, wow. I mean, and you seem to have had your share of that, including even attacks on your home and threats to your life. I mean, how do you get past all that and still come out on top of the pecking order as a lawmaker? And I mean, we're almost out of time, so,
like I said, when you have the love of people, every day I got people come and say, we are proud of what you're doing, we love what you're doing, same in Ideato and so on and so forth. So those things keeps you going. It's like a sacrifice that you have to make. I lost family members, especially my uncle who was beheaded when they couldn't get at me. You remember? We ran into exile. So we didn't even know we were going to survive. And then we saw the second attempt, the third attempt, and even those who were put in detention, charged with murder, charged with arson, charged with all sorts of offense, just because of mere political office, that somebody doesn't want you to be there. So when I see that despite all that they did, that the people still elected me in exile, even when they took me out from the court, the appeal court saw reason and restated me, I now told myself there's nothing that can stop me ever again from speaking out, because I would have died that day, but I didn't die. And now that I have that energy and that support from Ideato people and my God, I'll continue to do this.
Well, keep doing what you're doing. And thank you very much indeed for coming in. Honorable Ikenga Ugochinyere is a constitutional lawyer and member of the House of Representatives from Imo State. Good to see you again.